Bar staff, have you ever had a man use the Safeword drink escape, and how often does it happen? Story 1. Not to me, but my boyfriend, who was in the military, was roofied at a bar by a girl before we started dating. Unfortunately, this is not an uncommon occurrence near military bases where women drug and rape men or coerce them into unprotected wrestling in order to get pregnant. The military then takes a significant portion of the man's paycheck, ranging from 30 to 50%, to support the child. Fortunately, my boyfriend's friend was able to intervene before anything further happened, but he has no memory of that night. Story 2. I had a woman at the bar on business one night. She came up to me after about 20 minutes after I sat down alone. I was having a rough day. She apparently was having a great one. Sitting there, drinking my beer, she kept talking to me, grabbing me, and kept asking for us to leave because she would frick my brains out. Mind you, this woman was an obvious regular barfly and had been overserved. At one point, I got up and pretended my Asian buddy across the way, actually a stranger, was my best friend. She eventually made her way over and kept touching me. I asked the bartender if she could help me. She actually pretended to be a friend of mine also, said I was a part owner of the establishment, brought me into the office, and let me sit there with her and the guy in the office. They gave me some free food, let me finish my drink, had a good conversation, and some to-go food too. They felt terrible that a new guy had all these problems, I guess, but they treated me well and got me out of there unscathed. I can still remember her whacked-out hairstyle and the cigarette smoke that she stank of. Cool of the bartender to do that. Nice. It sounds like you had an interesting experience at the bar. It's great to hear that the bartender came to your aid and provided you with a safe escape from an uncomfortable situation. Story 3. Not exactly what you were asking for, but my boss had to sneak me out the back and drive me to my bus stop and wait for the bus with me. He couldn't drive me home because it was 2 a.m. and I lived an hour away. Because this guy would not leave me alone. We closed down the bar early, and I worked as a karaoke host at this place. He stood out there for an hour and a half. He was very clingy while inside, wanting me to come home with him and everything. Story 4. I have had this happen in a venue I managed in Melbourne. The lady in question became very forward, slightly abusive and threatening. The gentleman was obviously concerned for himself and did not like the way the date had progressed. We booked him a taxi and walked him out a back exit whilst he said he was going to the toilet. I spoke to the lady and covered his half of the bill. She became hysterical, paid, and then left. There was a huge power imbalance. Story 5. I've unintentionally used the Safeword drink before. Went to a bar with my now fiancé and ordered 2 Manhattans, which was apparently the Safeword. Bad choice in my opinion, but in the bar's defense, not exactly the place you would normally order one. I was very nicely asked to come over to the sidebar. What kind of bourbon do you want? And the bartender asked if I needed a cab or if I was in some kind of danger. Damn, using an actual drink name as the safe word in a bar. Whoever thought of that must be very smart. Story 6. I used to bartend for a gay bar. One night, I had a group of guys who seemed to be having a great time. After another round of shots, one sticks behind at the bar and asks for an angel shot. I bring him behind the bar and into the office. He was with a couple co-workers and their friends. He knew the co-workers were gay and would be taking him to a gay bar, but apparently things started to get out of hand when they started trying to grope him. I tell him he can chill in the back room for as long as he needed. He hands me a handful of crumpled ones and asks for a burger. We didn't really serve food besides crappy bar snacks, so I hand him back his money and give him a couple bags of chips. About half an hour later, I go to check on him and notice that he's really fricked up, to the point where he can't even talk. Definitely drugged with something. Luckily, all his butthole friends were still there drinking, so I called the cops. He was rushed away in an ambulance immediately. I shut the bar down so the cops and I could go through the security footage. We managed to catch 2 of the guys he was with putting some powder into his beer. Both of them were arrested. The other 2 were somewhere else at the time and were let go. You definitely saved this man's life because who knows what those butthole friends of his would have done to him afterwards. Thank you for helping him. Humanity truly needs more people like you. Story 7. My old regular bar had a drink called Neff. Need escape, please help. Not really the name, as it's in another language, but that's the idea. Which was not on the menu. If you order it, they'll call you a cab, and one of the waiters will wait next to the toilet, allowing you to pay your half there and let you in the back so you can leave unnoticed. It was available for men and women alike to get out of bad dates, though they will not really let you use it to skip on your date. They didn't advertise it really, but regulars knew it existed. They would also actively offer someone that drink if they feel their date is going to the wrong place. I saw a man being offered it once when his date was verbally abusive to him, and a woman whose date was so arrogant and creepy and talked down on her. Never actually use it myself. I actually thought it was relatively common in most neighborhood bars to have this type of drink. Story 8. I work occasional shifts at a gay bar where they don't really have a Safeword drink because where would they advertise that without the other party knowing? But there are still other ways that people surreptitiously ask for help, like writing something on the receipt or on a napkin. One guy, probably 19 or so, walked up to the bar and asked if he could charge his phone. When he handed it to me, he had already dialed in 911. And I'd say we get someone walking up to the guards or to the bar to complain about a creep at least once a week. Story 9. Not a bar staff, but I have a happier version of this. My brother-in-law, called Bill, once had a bunch of friends declare that tonight we are getting drunk, and that they are going to buy all of his drinks for the night. Bill is a pretty big guy, careful with his drink, and his friends had never seen him drunk. Their mistake was that they let him choose the venue. He chose the, at the time, only cocktail bar in town. Bill went there ahead of time, explained to the bartender, and asked if he could make a non-alcoholic drink just for him. Bartender agreed and told him to order the house special, non-alcoholic but with enough flavor and pepper to feel like a strong drink. It went as expected. Bill had a few beers with his mates, then started ordering specials while the others drank regular liquor, and that's how he could match everyone drink for drink. Well, what a clever and responsible approach by Bill. It's great to see someone have a good time without compromising their safety and well-being, and it's even better that the bartender was accommodating and helped make the experience enjoyable for him. Love to see when humans look out for each other. Story 10. I worked in a nightclub that was popular with the gay community for a couple of years. We didn't have a safe word, but one night there were two guys clearly hitting it off, and they were flirting and having a great time. After a couple of drinks, one of the guys was clearly being very forward and touchy, and the other guy was not enjoying this and had withdrawn. He attempted to walk back to his friends, but the first guy wasn't having it and pulled him back. In an attempt to get out, the guy started vigorously shaking his head anytime one of the bar staff walked by. After this happened a few times, we realized something needed to be done and spoke to the guy that was being all forward and explained that we didn't think the other guy wanted to stay at the bar with him. He got aggressive then and started screaming at us because how the frick would we know what the guy wanted, although it was blatantly obvious. Eventually, we got security down to escort the guy out of the place so that the guy who had been trying to get away could go back to his friends, have a good night, and not have to leave. Story 11. It wasn't an angel shot, but last week I had to meet my abusive ex-wife to discuss matters related to our kids. Being a male, I insisted we meet in a public place, and she reluctantly agreed to meet at Chili's. During the entire meal, she was being mean, hateful, and cruel to me, albeit quietly. Although I wasn't crying, I was feeling threatened by her behavior. Thankfully, our waiter noticed and discreetly asked if I was okay. I shook my head no, as I was afraid to leave the situation. After we finished our meal and were about to leave, the manager appeared with the waiter. He stood between my ex and me and politely told her that she needed to leave immediately, as he had called the police. The manager asked me to wait and offered me another drink while the police arrived and ensured my ex's departure. Well, it may not have been an angel shot. The actions of these workers were nothing short of angelic to me. They paid attention to a potentially dangerous situation and helped me more than they could ever know. Wow. It's great to hear that you had someone looking out for you in such a difficult situation. It's amazing how small acts of kindness can make such a big impact. The manager and waiter at Chili's should be commended for their bravery and compassion. Story 12. Not a bartender, but I have known many. Here's one of the stories I recall from an ex-bartender pal. An older woman used the Safeword drink, and as he was calling a cab for her, another bartender told him not to worry. The guy she was with was her husband, and she must have misspoke or he misheard. So he made the drink and brought it out to her. She never went back up to the bar, but he remembers her looking surprised by the drink. He felt that if it was a mistake, she would come back up. That night, they died in a crash, and he was driving. My buddy tried blocking it all out, but after a couple more years, he switched careers to animal rescue. He still thinks about that night and will randomly bring it up at gatherings. Story 13. Me, trying to enjoy a couple of drinks before boarding my flight home. This older lady, who was about a dozen drinks past smashed, wouldn't leave me alone. She even continued to bother me while I took a phone call. Thankfully, the bartender noticed and walked over. I asked him if he knew when a random flight was supposed to leave. He apparently had a plan in mind, knowing that I couldn't really leave the area. He walked over to two gentlemen at the other end of the bar and promptly returned and told me that they knew me. I look and they're waving me over. I picked up my drink and walked up to them like they were old friends. And magically, that lady started to leave me alone. Turns out that these random guys saw what was happening and had previously told the bartender that I looked like I could use some help. Great teamwork from the bartender and the tractor salesman. That lady had missed 4 flights that day because she drank way too much. Story 14. I used to own a bar, and we were the only cocktail lounge situated in between a bunch of nightclub-style places. They were loud, and we were lively, but not deafening. We would have quite a bit of overflow with hammered guests from these clubs, and it was a pretty weekly occurrence for us to have some sort of nonsense spill over into my bar. Granted, no one asked for the code word or angel shot. I just happened to notice something strange. In the middle of our 1 a.m. rush, I see this guy pull a chair from the table and set it at the entrance to a hallway where our restrooms are. I grabbed a female bartender and asked her to check on the female bathroom and see if there was a girl in there with anything weird going on, while I went and checked on the guy. I asked the guy how he's doing and if I can get him anything, and he tells me to frick off and he's just waiting for someone. I step away, and my bartender informs me that there's a girl in there crying and hiding from this guy who is following her from bar to bar, and she stepped into ours to hide. I have her go get the girl, while me and another bartender inform the guy he can't have this chair there because of fire code, and he has to move. He resists, so we assertively walk him out of our bar, while the girl is walked out our kitchen door out back, where my staff parks, and my female bartender gave her a ride to her car. In a busy rush, we never saw a girl just going to the bathroom, so sometimes in these situations, you just have to watch for the other signs, which could be anything. It was just a weird guy moving a chair that time. If any bartenders are watching this, please make sure to pay attention to little signs like this, because they might just save someone's life. Story 15. How do those safe words work when the person you're trying to get away from is the same gender? They put the signs with the special safe word in the restroom, and they work great when you need to get away from the opposite gender, but how does that work when the person you wanted to get rescued from is the same gender? Because if they use the restroom, they have seen the sign with the safe word, and if you use it in front of them, they will know what you're doing. Reply 1. I suppose you could make an excuse to go to the bar or the bathroom and stop by the bar on the way. This is actually a good question, but I believe there are plenty of ways and little signs that you can give bartenders and bouncers at clubs to tell them that you're in danger and need a way out. Story 16. I helped out someone once. I was out with my friends after work, and a guy was being harassed by this girl, full on trying to kiss him and grope him, etc. I had seen him around as I was a bartender at the time, but never really chatted more than the usual bar chat, if you know what I mean. Anyway, this guy looked scared of this chick, so I pretended I was his girlfriend. She backed off after that. Story 17. The safe word drink in my hotel is the Blue Red. So a guy comes to the bar with his weird butt date. Like her hair was all nasty and crap, and she kept getting in small verbal fights with other people. Something happened, and I saw the lady whisper something in the guy's ear. His eyes immediately opened, and he started panicking to the point where he was sweating profusely. The guy was so nervous that he kept shaking the entire time. I got worried and asked him what drink he wants with my hand on the emergency button, ready to call security. Him. Can I get a warm sake, please? Me. Yeah, sure. You want anything on it? Him. Yeah, let me get the blue red. I press the button and security comes from behind in like 2 seconds. Already called 911. My guy immediately tackles the lady with her hands behind her back and holds her for straight 10 minutes until the cops came. Apparently the lady got into a fight verbally with a big guy in our bar, and she asked her boyfriend to fight him or she is going to stab him and the big dude with the kitchen knife she had in her frickin' bag. Thankfully, the guys went home unharmed. Story 18. Related, sort of. Was walking home from a bar, and in the middle of town, I spot this chick walking down the other side of the road, maybe half a block ahead, opposite side. This car pulls up onto the curb and cuts her off. This huge dude pops out and tells her to get into the car. She says no. They have a verbal fight. She walks around his car. I'm about parallel with them now, the 2-lane road between us. He grabs her and starts dragging her towards the car. She grabs the spoiler on the trunk to resist getting hauled in. With great foresight, I yell out, "Hey, frick you!" Dude drops her like a sack of potatoes and starts towards me like the frickin' Terminator. Screams that it's his fiancée and who the frick am I? He gets close and takes this huge haymaker swing that I dodged, and I somehow tripped him too, so he fell down. I sprinted over to his car, pulled the keys, and took off running. Couldn't see the girl anywhere. I ran like lightning and threw his keys into some dude's yard and kept running. Story 19. Yep, had exactly this happen to me years back in a nightclub I managed. I experienced this only once, so I wouldn't say it happens often. Guy was talking with a girl over some drinks, and it turned out the girl he was with was an escort, and she had threatened him, saying guys were waiting outside to beat the crap out of him unless he paid so many hundreds more than what they had agreed to earlier. We immediately got the police involved instead of just escorting him out. It spiraled out of control briefly, but all was well in the end. Please leave your story down below in the comments. I would absolutely love to make a video about them in the future. And also don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, peace.